Building in a Small Town, where we're talking to entrepreneurs, community leaders, policymakers, and more to find out how they're building things in small towns. I'm your host, Shelby Smith. All right, hello and welcome back to the Building in a Small Town podcast. Today I am joined by another relatively local. You're not in Collins proper, but you are like just down the road.
Just a skip over.
Yes. So I have Kimberly Turner of Frosted Cakery based in Rhodes. We'll call it rural Rhodes.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
Of course. Is this your first podcast?
I've actually done another podcast before this, but it's always fun to have conversations with other business owners, so I look forward to it.
Yeah, very good. So I just want to start out like where you grew up, not far from here, but you didn't stick around here. So tell me a little bit about that whole story.
So I am born and raised in Colo, which is just 6 miles straight north of here on Highway 65. My entire family is still basically in Colo, but born and raised there and graduated, went to college at Ellsworth for my nursing degree, and then met a Marine, and he swept me away to Pensacola, and we kind of lived a lot of different places. He was a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps, so we lived in Pensacola, we lived in Hawaii, Virginia, North Carolina, and then he retired with 20 years, and we came back home. So that's what brought us back here. We were looking for land. We wanted to kind of be away, have our own space, and so we were watching for land for a few years and found some outside of Rhodes, and it's at the end of a dead-end gravel road, and it's perfect. We love it.
Amazing. So then my brother's a pilot, or F-16 pilot in the Air Force, so familiar with that life. If we say, did you guys have to go do overseas stints, or were you you stayed domestic? We
stayed in the States, other than living in Hawaii for 6 years. That's as far as the kids and I made it. He, of course, deployed to Germany, Spain, Iraq, Afghanistan, and let's see, his first one was to Japan. So, he was a world traveler. We kind of stayed a little bit closer to home.
Yeah, my brother's in Japan right now. So.
Oh, great.
Yes, they like it. But he's got 4 kids, 10 and under. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I feel like you either love it or you hate it. And most of my friends who were stationed there just absolutely loved it. So that's great.
Yeah, I think it's definitely different. So this is their, like I said, they have 4 kids. 2 of them were born overseas. Oh, wow. So the first one in Germany, second one in South Korea, and then the third one was the first one finally born in the States. She was born in New Mexico, and then the 4th one was born in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
But so then, and they'd been stateside for a little while because they went New Mexico to Rhode Island to DC, and then now they're in Japan. So it's definitely a long flight to go visit them. I've not been yet. My parents went over the winter.
You should go. At some point make a trip out there. While you're there, it would be totally worth it.
I've heard nothing but good things, and so it's on my list, and so we'll see what happens. But okay, so you guys moved back. Are you involved in the family business still?
Yeah.
Are you
So I definitely come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad is a farmer. He farms with his brothers locally here, and he also has an auction business. And my mom has a wedding venue in Colo, an event venue, and my older sister, she has a great corporate job, but she also has a side business where she does a U-pick flower farm. So she does that. My brother, he has his own thing. He did carpentry for a while and construction. And my younger sister and I do the bar service for the wedding and event venue. So we do that, and then we also help Dad in the office when he has auctions, and I do a lot of his social media and upload the photos. And so I'm kind of in a little bit of everything.
Yeah, of course. So then when you were when you were moving around with your husband and your kids and everything, you said you had a nursing degree. Were you using that nursing degree while you were, I know it's difficult as a military spouse. You are really at the whims of the Marines deciding when you're moving, where you're moving, how much notice you have, all of the things. And then a lot of people don't realize sometimes you're like restricted on, typically in the States, you're not as restricted of like being able to get a job as a spouse,
Right.
but like certainly overseas and that kind of thing. So were you able to, work while you guys were still moving around?
Yeah.
Or?
So I know right before we got married, in 2003, I went down to Florida and had an interview and had a job set up before we moved to Pensacola right after we got married. So I worked at a hospital there and then was able to get a job when we moved to Hawaii. And, they say as a military spouse, you're not supposed to be like judged by, oh, well, we don't want to hire her and put all the work into her. She's just going to leave in a couple years. But I never had that issue. Was able to get a job pretty easily and then started having kids. Our 3 youngest were born there. They still claim that they're full on Hawaiian blood.
Of course they are.
But once I was learned that I was pregnant with our 4th, I was like, okay, it just got really hard to find help to watch the kids because nursing, it's either early morning or late at night hours. And my husband was always gone. He was gone for more than half the time that we lived in Hawaii. So it was mostly just me and the kids. So it was just kind of hard to get the hours in. So I decided to stop working when I got pregnant with Tyler. So, and I haven't been back and I miss it, but it's been worth it being able to stay home with the kids. So
yeah, of course. Yep. So then how long have you guys been back? What year did you come back?
So we moved back to Iowa, the summer of 21. So we've been back for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you said you found land. So then did you end up building a house?
We built a house and my husband has a shop and we're on 12 acres. And I was able to like plan all the stuff in the house, which was a lot of fun. It's definitely overwhelming. I know you just redid the upstairs and it's a lot of decisions, but I love my kitchen. And after having a bakery for almost 7 years in North Carolina, I was like, I was done for a while, kind of burnt out. So I was like, I'm not going to start baking again. I'm going to take a break. But then as soon as my kitchen was done, I was like, man, I just really love this space and I just want to bake in it. So I kind of started the business back up again and here we are.
So then let's talk about that. So your bakery it's not a new thing then. So you started that in North Carolina. Like, how did that come about? Were you just restless? Were you like, I have this space, so we needed some extra money? Like, I just am bored. How did that go?
So it kind of started back way early on in our marriage when we were in Hawaii. When my husband first deployed, I had just had our second child, I think it was, and just I always loved to bake. Wasn't always very good at it when I was little, but, my mom let me, bake cookies and they'd turn out terrible. And my older sister would take them out to the pigs and they wouldn't eat them. So she'd be like, oh, they're so terrible. The pigs won't even eat them. But, I kept baking. But I started making sugar cookie bouquets just kind of for fun, for friends, for certain events. And then they started asking me to make them for gifts. And so that kind of kicked that off. And I took a wilting class in Honolulu, just the first one, just to, for something to do. And just kind of was self-taught after that. But it just seemed like the longer we were in Hawaii, the more people were asking for things. And it wasn't a legit business there, but, you just kind of keep things hush-hush, especially when you live on base. There's so many rules.
Yes.
But then we moved to Virginia, and it's like word of mouth. Like everybody's friends in Virginia were like, Kim's moving to Virginia. If you need a cake or cookies, just call her. And so kind of had some more business there. And then we moved to North Carolina, and I had orders before we even unpacked our household goods. So it just got to be a lot. And so I was like, I should probably make this like a legit thing. I can only like go under the radar for so long. So set up a business and did it out of our home for a while, and really wanted to grow it. So I was doing markets, and they have this huge market in Swansboro, or not a market, a festival called the Mullet Festival. And it's not the hare, although you do see some there. It's the fish. And so it's like 10,000 people come to our itty bitty little town, and it's so much fun. So we set up a stand there as a vendor, and one of my customers owned some space in a shopping mall, and she was like, you've got to open up a bakery. Like, your stuff is great. You just need to do it. And she's like, I have the perfect space for you. So, we went and looked at it just to kind of like see and do the math and, I've never like run like a legit business and had a space or a storefront. So it was kind of like, okay, how many cupcakes do I need to sell to pay the rent? I had literally no idea, like there's also going to be insurance and utilities. I didn't really think about that, but I was like, that doesn't sound so bad. So we kind of just went for it and we signed the lease. And I think that was early October. My husband is super handy, so he did a lot of the work kind of getting the space ready. And the end of November we opened, and it was amazing. We definitely filled a gap in the community. So we were widely accepted and we grew really fast, and it was just so much fun. And we were open for almost 7 years, and then my husband retired. So tried to sell the business, but it was right kind of at the end of COVID. So people were not sure what was going on, or, how businesses were going to do moving forward, or what was going to happen moving forward. So had a lot of possibilities, and then they would drop out last minute because they were just, scared, which I don't blame them. So we kind of packed everything up and brought it to Iowa.
So you started the legit business, shall we say, my math is right, like 2014?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And at that time, like, did your bakery have a focus? Like, were you like mainly, you mentioned how many cupcakes does it take to pay my rent? Were you like very cupcake heavy? Were you big cakes? Were you, you brought me some lovely biscotti today. Like, what was your specialty?
Our specialty was cupcakes mostly. That was what was in the case every day. I'd also do like cookies and bars, and I did biscotti every once in a while. And then we also did custom cakes, so that was a big part of it as well. But the cupcakes were kind of like, it was like a cupcake shop basically. And so that was our main focus that we offered every day. But the custom orders were really got big and was a huge part of the business that took a lot of my time, which, that was one of the things I was really bad at first, was time management. Like I would be up there till 1-2 o'clock in the morning finishing cakes for the next day. And so that was definitely a learning curve there. It took a few years to kind of learn to say no. Like I can't, I already have too many orders. And so it's a lot of learning. And then just figuring out like the business side of running a bakery is so much more than the actual baking. And so it was a lot. And it's no joke when people say like owning a business is probably the hardest thing that you will ever do, but is also the most rewarding. Because it was a lot of work.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things, unless you've done it, you can't fully appreciate it. I feel like, especially, building something from scratch. So, talk to me about that, like the business of figuring out how to make a bakery work. Like what did you have a pricing model? Like what, when you walked into this, you come from a family of entrepreneurs, it's not like you hadn't been exposed to at least some of it. Growing up a farmer's daughter and a very entrepreneurial mother as well, like I was always exposed to it.
Right.
So I think that was very helpful for me going in. Do you at least had some familiarity? Did you feel like?
Well, we did some market research and went around to like local bakeries in the area just to kind of see how they were set up and what they offered, but most importantly, kind of what their pricing was, because we wanted to be competitive, but also didn't want to undercut everybody or be like way over and be the most expensive. So we did a lot of that, which, it's really hard to have to try everybody's cupcakes, and
the worst.
But, it's a write-off. So we kind of figured we kind of price it kind of in the middle at first. And then as things moved along and the demand changed, we would, like at the beginning of the year, I feel like, okay, is this the right time to change our pricing, increase our pricing a little bit? So that's kind of what we did. But it was just kind of a guessing game, starting out. And of course, like looking back, I know I way underpriced all my cakes, because one of the last things I think people consider is your time. And knowing how many hours I spent on some of those cakes, those people got some great deals. But, you live and you learn. So
I would say I think that's fairly common, especially, service-based businesses. Yeah. Like, I think we all get it so wrong. Yep. And I always tell people, like, young entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about starting their own business, like, yes, create the spreadsheet, create the projections, all of those things, but understand that everything's going to be wrong.
Yes.
Like
yes.
all of it's going to be wrong. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have a plan, but don't get too caught up in creating those projections, because the reality of running it is just so different.
Yeah. I think it's just important to know your numbers, like knowing what your actual costs are. I mean, that's a good start at least. And then you can kind of figure out, what you can charge for your time, and, what your community will pay, because there's, I think there's certain industries where you can charge whatever you want to, but also where your location is makes a huge difference. We were kind of right outside of Emerald Isle, which is a huge tourist attraction in the summer. So we had a lot of summer traffic with people who come in from out of town and usually are very wealthy. And so we were able to continue to raise our prices and people wouldn't bat an eye. So it's just knowing your location and having an understanding of your pricing, and if you're charging too much, you're going to figure it out. Like, people are not going to continue to pay you if you're charging too much. But I think we did like a gradual increase, and people understood. And also the price of goods was going up, and so you just kind of have to make adjustments, and everybody understands that. Like, you don't even need to make an announcement. It's just everyone knows. Like, everybody's feeling that just with the groceries. So they understand, like, your butter's gone up, almost double. So yeah, you're going to have to increase your prices.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And so when you first started off in this bakery space, you signed the lease, all that stuff, did you have employees, or was it just you?
So I did have a partner starting out, like, for the first year, a friend of mine who also baked. Probably would have never done it if it wasn't for her. Like, I would have never had the courage to just open up a storefront. So we did that together, and so it was just the two of us, and we both had young kids. So it was kind of like I took the morning shift, and she took the afternoon shift, because she homeschooled, and my kids were just, like, my youngest, I think, had just started going to kindergarten. So it was the perfect timing for that, and that's just what worked for us. But then it was like I had to come back in at night and work on cakes. And so it's funny because it's so hard to give up control of things, especially in a business. And so that was probably the hardest thing, was hiring people. And the first person I think we hired was just a customer of ours, who she came in all the time, and she was just like, do you guys need help? Like, I'll come do your dishes. And I hate doing dishes, like, with a passion. So I was like, sure. So she was our first employee. And then around the same time, probably too, I think we hired a bookkeeper, because that is just not my thing. And so to be able to give that up was great. I mean, it's always hard to, like, oh, now we have to pay her, right? But it was worth it, because the time that she could get it done was well worth the money paying her than the hours and hours I would spend trying to figure out, where to carry the one, where does this go, who do I pay, when? So it was definitely worth it, and she's wonderful. And then, so I think we just had just a couple for a while, and then we were like, okay, well, we should probably hire people at least to help us up front, serving the customers and running the register, so we could focus on the cakes. And so then we just hired mostly high school kids to run the front. And as we got busier, and then eventually I bought my partner out a little after a year, I think, that we were open. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm definitely going to need some more help. So a lot of high school kids, and they were great, usually daughters of my friends. So I knew they were great already, or their friends who, like, hey, she's really great, she would be good. So I always had, like, a little vetting system. I'm like, okay, here's the people who want a job. Like, probably not, like, the right way to do it, but,
You had a pipeline.
Yes. So I never had any issues. And they always stayed with me until they left for college, and some even would come back in the summer. So it was great. We didn't have a very big turnover, but my initial employee, Trish, who started out washing dishes, ended up very soon being, like, my main baker, my head baker, my bakery manager. She ran the show, and she was fantastic, and could not have gone as long without her. So she was definitely a godsend. She was wonderful. So had some really amazing employees.
Yeah. And it's one of those things I can totally resonate with, the like fear of giving up the control on the thing. It's just, it's your baby and you don't feel like anybody can do it as well as you and you know, just letting that control go makes it easier. And then it doesn't limit the business, because then you become, you know, the bottleneck of the whole thing.
Yeah. So I was the worst. It was like, only I can make the cakes, only I can make the frosting. And then it was like, I'm here all day, I want to go home. So it was like, okay, why don't you can make it and we'll see how it turns out. And like, then I had the high schoolers making all the buttercream, which freed up so much time. And I was like, why did I wait so long to let them do these things? And they enjoyed it too, because it made them feel like more of a part of the business and helping out more. And so, you know, towards the end, I was coming in the mornings and helping set up, kind of popping in, and then that's all I did, you know, and then I would come back in the afternoon maybe and do cakes. And so it was very freeing, finally allowing other people to do other things in the business. So definitely encourage people to just let go of the control and trust other people. Like you are not the only person who can do that. Like there are other people, you can teach them. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, so then, you know, you had this retail space, but then you also had the custom orders essentially happening. Do you, like, just off the top of your head, have any idea what your split was like? Were you like 50% like retail people walking in, 50% custom, or was it more like 70-30?
I would say it was maybe like, I know I had the numbers, you know, when we were doing it, and looking back I can't remember, but I would say it's probably like maybe 60-40, 60 being the everyday walk-in cupcakes, cookies, things, and we would have some little cakes sometimes that people could walk in and grab, but the custom cakes, 40% probably. So it was a big deal. It was just a lot of work, a lot of hours. So,
yes. And so then during COVID with all of that, then, you know, 60% turns into, you know, 10-20%. And so adjusting for that. But I'm always curious with people with like brick and mortar locations, like how did you drive traffic? Like what was your best marketing? Was it word of mouth? Like were you big on social media? Like what do you think brought people to the door?
I think initially we had a really great following on our social media before we had our space, because we were doing the markets and we had a lot of networking with our military friends. And so initially and always, I feel like word of mouth is always your best way of marketing. But the space that we were in, the shopping mall, was right kind of in the corner of several businesses, and one being the post office, and the one next to it was an OBGYN. So you had like people coming in and out of the post office, and then you had pregnant mamas walking by your door every day, like, you know, they're coming in for cupcakes.
Perfect location.
So we had great foot traffic as well and there was a couple of restaurants. And so I mean, I think you couldn't necessarily see it really well from the road because we were kind of tucked back, but because the other businesses that were there, we had constant foot traffic. So that definitely was great for us.
Yeah. And so then on the custom side, I imagine it was same sort of mix, but you also like word of mouth had to have been huge.
Yep. And I would always take pictures of the cakes and post them, and you know, so that helped too. And oh my gosh, you know, I want that cake, you know, can you make this for me for da da da. So, you know, social media was huge, and Instagram and Facebook, and so. And
did you find a lot of your custom orders, were they weddings, were they just all occasions?
Mostly birthdays and other occasions. We had obviously a heavy military, a lot of military in the community, so we did a lot of retirements and promotions, and just like parties. And I did some Marine Corps birthday ball cakes, which were huge and so much fun. And the weddings were not my favorite, and they're still not my favorite, just because of the stress. I would literally make myself sick, just stressing out, because, you know, you want it to be perfect. You want everybody to be happy. And I only had a couple of bridezillas and one awful mother of the bride, which after that I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I can't just... You know, it's great. It's fun to make beautiful cakes, but the stress was literally making me sick like every weekend. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna thank you, but no. If you want cupcakes, I'll do a cupcake tower and a little 6-inch cake, but like the big extravagant cakes, I'm done with, because it was just too much.
Yeah. Ooh, I
can tell you stories about some of the weddings, but it would just made me so sick, just stressing.
I can't imagine. Nope. That'd be a hard pass from me. So then, you're talking about all this, like the decorating and the skill of all of that. You said you were self-taught, right?
Yep.
So where did you go for like inspiration? Like, is it just watching other people do it, seeing if you could do it? Like, how does that happen?
Well, I have to give credit to my grandma. She was like the OG cake lady in Colo. Phyllis Wilson. I grew up watching her decorate cakes. My dad would take us to the farm, which they just lived a couple miles away, but he would go on the weekends and do chores and just drop us off at the house. And so we just sit at the table and watch Grandma decorate. So grew up watching her. And then I did that one little Wilton class in Honolulu. But it's just, everybody would bring in Pinterest inspiration, and I was just, I guess, really good at just recreating things. And there was a lot of trial and error, because some of my first cakes, I look back and I was like, oh my gosh, like how could I have ever charged for that? But a lot of those were, I think my very first one, which wasn't even like, I wasn't really trying very hard, but it was when my husband, I think is when he got promoted to first lieutenant. It was just this little cake with probably store-bought icing in the can, and I had a little helicopter cookie cutter, and I just popped it on the top to make an imprint, and then got that store-bought green gel icing and squeezed it on the outline. It was dreadful. But you got to start somewhere. But I think it's just a trial and error, and watching videos and playing around with stuff and seeing what you like to do and what you don't, and hoping for the best.
Yeah. That's cool. So do you then remember, and this can be in two parts on this one. So your pre-legitimate business, do you remember your first paying customer?
I do.
What was it?
It was a friend of mine when we lived on base in Hawaii on K-Bay, and she asked me to make a sugar cookie bouquet for her daughter. She had just had a little girl, Gwyneth Rose. So I made some little cookies with a little like buttercream rose on them, and yeah, that's what I remember.
Did she like them?
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
And then, so do you then remember your first customer when you like opened your brick and mortar?
Oh gosh, we had like a grand opening. Like we did this whole, marketing thing where you could come to like the sneak peek the night before we opened, and we had little gift bags for everybody. I don't know if I remember like my first actual paying customer at the storefront. That's when I didn't think to remember.
Well, and
it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that is sort of a different situation too, right? Like, you had been dabbling in this business for however many years, and I'm glad that you remember the Gwyneth Rose cookies. But yeah, just opening your brick and mortar. I was just curious. It's one of those things I always want to know if people remember the first one.
I know there's a picture that I have when we did our first market downtown Swansboro of our first customer, and we took a picture of our first dollar. So I have that. But I don't remember the storefront one. Probably because we were exhausted. It was crazy, and just on a high of, oh my gosh, we did it. Here we are.
Yeah. Here we are now. What?
Yep. Yeah. Here we go.
Yes.
Ready or not.
Right. So you talked about it earlier, or you mentioned it earlier. Tell me about the burnout and like just being like, you know what, we need to be done with this. Talk to me when did you really start to feel the stress and the burnout and being like, man, I used to love this so much. Like, this is pretty terrible right now.
Well, I mean, it was probably the last couple of years of having the storefront. It was, the kids were getting older. My husband was still deployed. I don't know, like the exact moment I was like, oh, I'm so done with this. But it was just because it was mostly just me doing the custom cakes. I know Trish and maybe one or two of the other girls would help doing some of what we called our signature cakes, which were just like, any occasion you could just throw some Oreos on a cake. I mean, not just throw them on there, but, make it look nice.
Place them nicely.
Yeah. So we had a couple of, Trish and one of the other gals could make those. And so that was helpful, but it was like the custom orders were just me. And I mean, there's sometimes where people would ask for just some pretty ridiculous things. And if I didn't love it, my heart wasn't in it, I feel like. And so, I think it was just we had so much going on at home with my husband being gone, and after so many years, it's just like, oh my gosh, when is this ever going to end? And just learning to be like, okay, I don't have to like torture myself. I can say I'm not taking custom orders anymore. And I know that I think I limited it to just a couple on the weekend rather than like 8 to 10 cakes. And so that was helpful. But then eventually I was like, well, people aren't complaining too much about only doing like a couple of cakes. I could probably just like stop. And I think it was honestly maybe COVID that was like kind of like, okay, well, it was a good excuse to not do those anymore. So, and then it was just so freeing, not having that stress of making everybody's cakes perfectly how they wanted, just like in the pictures. And so I think it was probably COVID that kind of helped me be like, it's okay, you can say no because you can't really do a whole lot right now anyways. So
right. So then at that point, once you stepped away from the custom cakes, then the rest of it, you had the pieces in place for that business to just kind of continue forward and not feel as burnout on your side.
Yeah, it allowed me to focus on the things that I was doing that I really enjoyed. We were doing like cake decorating classes, which were such a blast. And I mean, they were selling out, and I would buy as many folding tables as I could fit across my tiny little bakery, and how many chairs can I fit? And like, that would be what I would have to cap it off for number of people attending. So we did kids cake decorating classes. We did corks and cakes where people could bring in their own beverage of choice, and we would decorate and drink, and it wouldn't get crazy, but sometimes it did. But those were so much fun. And then I had requests for people to decorate with their kids. So then I started doing like a mommy and me class, and it was just so much fun. And I really enjoyed doing those. I did a few sugar cookie classes. So I was able to do more of that, especially on the weekends, because I wasn't stuck at the bakery, like decorating all these custom cakes. And so that ended up being a lot more lucrative anyways for me. So being able to just focus my time on the things that I enjoyed more was definitely worth it.
Right. And so I always feel like when people start a business, there's so much happening and there's so much going on that maybe you don't realize that I really like this and I don't like this, but I have to make it all go. I have to do it all in order to make the whole thing go. And I feel like it is about that 5-year mark where you really start to either love certain parts of it or hate certain parts of it. So when did the class thing come up? Like, when did you start being like, I really would like to teach this?
I mean, I feel like maybe a couple years in, I started doing the classes, but it was just hard to find the time to do them. And I enjoyed them. And I was doing a lot of like, I was going to locations. Like I went to the Navy Hospital and did a lot of classes with the birthing moms, because I was able to connect with the instructor there for their birthing classes. She's like, it would be so much fun at the end of their class if you would come in and we could all decorate cakes. So I did that several times. I would do a lot of, I would go to a spa and they would do like, what do you call it when you have like team meetings and when you just had your coworkers come together and
like a team building.
Yes, I did a lot of team building. So I would go to a lot of businesses and bring all the cakes and all the buttercream and the tools, and we would do that there. And I really enjoyed that. I did a lot of military spouse group coffees and get-togethers, and so that was fun. I really enjoyed doing that aspect of things. So that's when I was like, okay, let's see how we can do more of these like in the shop. And so
right. So it's more of an interacting with people sort of situation and not constantly
by myself at 2 a.m. in the bakery.
Yeah. Yes, I can imagine. Yes, there's a lot of that. Yep. Okay. So then, your husband retires. When did you guys decide now's a good time to move back to Iowa? Like, I know I have this business and like, we'll put some feelers out about like, can we sell it? But like, how did that whole decision play out? Because I got to imagine that was not really an easy one.
No, it wasn't. And, I knew it was coming. I mean, it was crazy for a military spouse to even commit to having a storefront because we didn't know we were going to be there. I think we ended up being there. We were there for 8 years.
Which is
insane.
Crazy.
Like, you don't ever hear that. We were so lucky we were in Hawaii for 6 years. We were in Virginia for 4 and North Carolina for 8. And
I can tell you if my sister-in-law listens to this, she's gonna be real jealous.
I know. I feel like
really jealous.
Being a pilot, that helps. You get to stay places a little longer usually.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the Marine Corps, but
I was gonna say it sounds like just a Marine Corps
and the aircraft he flew, but we just had not very many options of where we could go. But I know usually it's like 18 months and you're on to the next place.
Yep.
So when I opened up the storefront, like after we had been where we were for just over a year, I was like, okay, well, I don't know how long this is going to last. And our landlord, started out with just a year lease. And then we kind of, moving forward, we kind of knew we were going to be there for longer. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I was like, well, you know what? I've been following my husband around and gave up my nursing career willingly. I don't resent him for that or anything. That was definitely a choice we made together. But I was like, you know what? It's just one of those things where I don't know how long we're going to be here. This is going to be kind of fun. I think, we can make some money doing it. And if not, and it doesn't work out, at least I can say we tried and we did it and we had a great time doing it. So that was kind of the motivation behind it. And then never imagined it would turn into almost 7 years. So
yeah. So then he retires. Does he retire first, or had you already been talking about like maybe we need to look at selling this? Like ultimately we want to come back to Iowa.
Yeah. I mean, initially we had planned to stay in North Carolina because we loved it so much. But the last couple of years we were like, you know what, we really probably want to be closer to family because his family's from Southwest Iowa. And we just always enjoyed coming home and wanted our kids to grow up, the rest of their childhood around cousins and grandparents. So I know probably about a year and a half, maybe 2 years before he was set to retire, we were like, okay, we kind of have to figure out what we're going to do here. And I knew selling the business was going to be a process. And I had, a handful of people that were interested. It was just darn COVID just scared everybody off. And, I feel like I really did a great job of thriving through the pandemic and thinking outside the box. And I was doing deliveries, and we were doing online cake decorating classes and making the cake kits. So they'd come in and pick up the cakes and then just watch me on Facebook and decorate. So we did great. We didn't suffer through the pandemic like a lot of businesses unfortunately did. I know a lot of the businesses in town had to close. They couldn't do it. And with COVID, it was just like I couldn't get anybody to commit because they were just, unsure. The uncertainty of the economy, which, can't do anything about that.
Yeah, and you can't blame them either, But okay, so then you end up packing everything up. You come back to Iowa. You found this land. Yep. You are dabbling in all of the other family businesses, and you have this brand new kitchen that you love, and you love this space. So then what? So
I started out just by making a few things. My brother managed the Nylands Cafe for a while. And so I worked up there as a waitress and enjoyed the heck out of that because, working with people. So I made a few things for them starting out and baking up there. And then, of course, just having family and friends back here that knew I baked, they were always asking, can you make a birthday cake? Can you make me some cupcakes for this? So I would do it. But I was like, okay, I knowing now, looking back, I was like, I can control the crazy if I do this again. I can, limit what I want to do. I can do the markets, and, maybe that's all I do is just the markets. Maybe I don't take any custom orders. So I was like, okay, I can do this, but I'm going to be smart about, saying yes and saying no. Like, I'm going to do better this time.
I am going to establish boundaries, and I am going to stick to them.
Boundaries. So, I was like, I think, I told my husband, I was like, I think I'm going to restart my business, and we'll get the kitchen inspected and licensed, which isn't necessary in the state of Iowa with the cottage laws. But I just feel like for me, I feel like it's just nice to be able to say my kitchen is inspected and it's legit, don't have cats laying around, which that's not a bad thing. But we always joke, Trish and I, it's so hard to trust people at potlucks because you just don't know if like their cats were laying around the casserole or, so I always have that thought. It always makes me laugh, but I just think it's just nice to let people know and knowing that they're purchasing food products from a kitchen that has been inspected by the state. And, so that's why I did that. And then I told my husband, I was like, I really want to do markets. I think it would be fun to like get a little camper or a trailer or something, and not just have I had a pink tent when we did things back in North Carolina, but the weather was always so unpredictable. We had hurricanes, we had rain, and things would get canceled, or they would be like rain or shine, and here you are in hot temperatures and your cupcakes are melting. And so I was like, it'd be great if we could have like something on wheels that I could control the air temperature. And so we started looking for little campers. And so I found this cute little 10-foot little camper. It was in rough shape. But again, because my husband's so handy, he helped me like totally gut it and make it what we needed, and had a family friend paint it for us so it looks really great, and ended up like, okay, I'll just do markets. So that was kind of the focus of the first year, but of course still had side orders. But I've been a lot better about the boundaries and saying no, but I just really enjoy the markets and being able to control and bake when I want to bake and bake what I want to bake. So that's been fun for me this time around.
And so when did you get the kitchen licensed?
March of 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
So March of 22. So
Yep.
then did you jump right into markets in summer of 22?
Yep. So I did the Maxwell Market, and it was every Sunday, May through September, and did pretty much almost every Sunday. I mean, there was a few where, we had things going on, but I just did the Maxwell Market, and that went really well. They do such a great job of organizing that market. And then the next year, I was like, I could probably do some more locations, because everyone's like, I did Geneva too that first year, and that was great. So
I think the weather was awful at both May and September Genevas of 2022, if I remember right. At least one of the days was
I feel like
horrible.
Yeah, like rain.
Yes. And I think it was both weekends, though, if I seem to remember. That's too many markets ago, but I just remember 2022 Geneva being like, this was awful.
I know. The second day I think was supposed to rain and thunderstorm, and my husband was even like, let's just go up and hook up the camper and bring it home. Like, no one's gonna come out. And it was our best day.
Yeah.
It was better than the day before when it was like sunshiny.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, these people are hardcore.
Those Geneva market shoppers are some of the most hardcore of any market
they
that
come
I've been
from
to.
Minnesota and Wisconsin.
They're committed, and it's rain or shine or
they're
snow.
in their
they
umbrellas and their rain boots, and they got the wagons hauling all their goods. It's insane. So props to the Geneva market people who come, because I was impressed. Like, we were almost going to load up and head out, and I'm so glad we didn't, because that was our best day.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always surprised and shocked at they are devoted.
Yes.
Which is awesome. So, of 2022, like, what was your favorite market? Like, what was your biggest surprise, maybe?
Let's see. So that first year we just did Maxwell and Geneva, and I was surprised at, being every Sunday, I was surprised at the number of people that just kept coming back every Sunday, and gained a lot of new followers, and, people asking, oh, when are you going to have this flavor? And what are you having? And so they were always like looking forward to the different flavors I had every week. So, and it was really fun getting to know the other vendors. I didn't always have the time to go around and like visit, but like, your neighbors and across the way, you get to know them. And it's just always great to be able to connect with other business owners, and I love that too, because I love like the marketing side of things, and I just love like talking business with other people, and it just really gets me excited. I'm like, oh, you should do this, and so it's always fun to like learn about other people's businesses and see how they're doing and how you can help them, and just in conversation.
Yeah. So that first year, what were you said you got to bake what you wanted to bake.
Yeah.
What did you want to bake?
I just I wanted to try new things and do different things. So just trying new recipes and changing up certain things, and just, because I always want to be like, okay, let's try and have like this Iowa State Fair mindset. Like, what's going to be the one thing that I could make, each Sunday, which didn't happen because it was a lot. It was pretty frequent, but I was like, I'm going to go into the season. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to have like that state fair item that everybody wants to seek out. So that was my goal. Didn't always happen, but like the cake cups, where it's literally just like when I bake a custom cake, I level off the top, because when it bakes it kind of rounds up. I level the top, and I use that cake and just throw it in a cup with layers of buttercream, throw some toppings, sprinkles, whatever on top, and that's what everybody wanted. So that's what I tried to bring as much as I could. So that was always fun. But and everybody loved the salted caramel chocolate chip bars and the monster cookies. And so it ended up, like, I feel like towards the end I was just like making the same thing, but that's what they wanted. So that's just kind of what we did.
Yeah. So no cupcakes.
Oh yeah, always cupcakes.
Okay.
I always had like, sorry, I figured that just kind of went without saying. I always had like at least 6 flavors, and tried to change them up every week. And So it was always fun to be able to change that up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, so then this past year, 2023, more markets?
I did. I probably was a little bit overzealous and I signed up for a lot just because I figured, you know what, let's just see, try some different ones, see what works. Some were disappointing, some were surprising. But now like this upcoming season, I kind of know like the places I want to go and maybe scale back a little bit because my schedule was pretty intense last summer. But it was fun, and I had the kids were helping me, and so it was fun for everybody to do that. So
did you go back to Maxwell and Geneva?
Yep. So yep, I feel like Maxwell will always be like my number one. I got started there, and they do such a great job and have such a great turnout, and so always would be my first one that I always sign up for. I've gone back to Geneva. They do such a great job as well. So those two are like my for sures. I did Nevada a couple times. I feel like I think the weather, it was too hot, so they had to cancel a couple times.
Yeah.
So I think I only got to go there once. But it was really great. I was in Colo for an event, and being my hometown, I feel like all my Colo people come out, and I always do really well there. We did Bondurant, Ankeny, so some of them were kind of surprising where I was like, I just figured it would be a lot more people.
Yeah.
Or, but, also as I feel like as I ventured further away, I probably had less
brand awareness.
Yes. I feel like they're like, who's this crazy lady in this little little camper, so I don't know. I think I just need to stick closer to home for now.
Well, and yes. And it takes a few years potentially, and everything else, just figuring out what works and what doesn't. And outdoor markets are so impacted by the weather, so impacted by things that are out of your control, that, something one year can go great, and then the next year it is thunderstorming and it breaks your tent, or, there's so many things that I feel like customers on the other side do not necessarily understand that a 3-hour market means like a 7-hour situation of setup, tear down, all of the things.
Yes, which is why I don't miss not having a tent. I love having the camper because
you just pull it up,
have a little AC in the back. Yep, my husband just gets me all set up, and then he'll leave and come get me at the end. And if it's raining, I've got shelter, and if it's windy, I'm seeing tents blow by, and I'm just in my little camper.
Yes.
So I think that's definitely been a bonus. But I've been there though, had the tent, and lived to tell many stories about my husband. It's funny, Trish, the gal that worked with me, she just texted me the other day because they had tornadoes out in North Carolina. She's like, I need Nick right now to tell me when these tornadoes are going to hit, because he would be like, all right, you've got about 15 minutes until this rain is going to hit, so we better start packing up these cupcakes. So it was always kind of a running joke, but he's always been my little personal weatherman, so I could always kind of know like what's coming and when to prepare.
And as a pilot, he's got access to additional weather things.
Oh, sure.
The civilians didn't necessarily. My brother, I've been around when my brother does the same thing of telling you what's happening and when. And I'm always like, okay, I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like you definitely know. So very good. So then talk to me a little bit about like what your marketing strategy has been then, since you've been back. Like your first year, obviously there's the word of mouth thing, like your reputation precedes you in many ways, which is awesome and super helpful. And I always tell people like that. I totally agree with you that is your most valuable marketing is previous customers talking to potential new ones. But as you started to then venture into your second year and go a little bit broader with your markets and things like that, did you try anything different? Are you looking at trying new things this year to see, what's that been like?
I mean, I'm always looking to try different things and spice things up a little bit. I think just being consistent on your social media is probably the best thing that you can do. Sharing things that are engaging to get people to comment and share. So doing like giveaways. I do like a monthly giveaway on my website where I ship a package of biscotti every month to somebody who just signs up. I do ship a lot of things. I have my monthly biscotti subscription box, so I ship to several states with that, and I feel like I want to try and do like something where they can share with a friend, or something like a refer a friend type thing. Just, like you said, the word of mouth is just so great. So just always looking at different strategies and how to grow and expand my reach. And so I know, and videos are always huge. Going live is something I need to do more of. I do like box openings for my subscription boxes and share what's in each box because it's a surprise. When I ship them, nobody knows what flavors are in them until they get it. So just, being consistent is probably the thing I try to do, and then just keep an eye on the trends and do the best I can.
And then, so what platform are you like most active on? Are you Facebook, Instagram, both, all? Are you on TikTok?
Yeah, I am, but I am not that great. Like, I need to hire my kids to do like content for TikTok because videos they take time, or I always forget, like, everything is content. I have to remember to record everything. But I'm trying to do better about that. Mostly I'm on Facebook because that's the easiest for me because I'm old, right? We're the older generation, so Facebook is where we're at. But I'm also on Instagram, so I try to be consistent with my stories. And then TikTok, I might have a couple of videos on my TikTok. I don't even know. I haven't been on it for so long. But yeah, I try.
Yeah, so not on like YouTube or anything like that?
No, and that's something that I would like to do eventually. I have a Pinterest page as well with all my pictures, and I'm not very consistent at that. So I just try to, not to overwhelm myself because you could literally spend 8+ hours a day just on marketing, which I love, but it's overwhelming. So sometimes I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. I have all these things I need to do, and then I do nothing because I'm overwhelmed. I just freeze. But Facebook and Instagram are where you could probably find me the most
consistently.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yep.
And then, so, you're talking about finishing up in North Carolina. What you really enjoyed doing were the classes.
Mm-hmm.
So have you been able to incorporate that back in? I mean, home-based, I feel like you're probably not teaching your classes at home.
No, not at home. So I use my mom's event venue. I do in-person classes there. I didn't do any during the market season just because it was just too busy. So I have a kids class coming up this Sunday and an adult class the following Saturday. And I'm going to try and do, at least one of those each month up until the market season and kind of see what my schedule looks like there. But I also have a online cake decorating membership group where I decorate a new cake design each month, share the supply list, and kind of go through a tutorial live. And then my youngest son, Tyler, who's 14, loves to bake. And so I was like, it would be fun to do like Tuesday with Tyler. So he comes on once a month and he'll just bake. This past week he did monkey bread. So he does a recipe that's, easy for anybody to do and does a video in that inside the group each month. So it's just a little something fun that when I don't have the time to do it in person, I have that consistent monthly decorating group, which I enjoy because I enjoy the teaching aspect and I've always loved the classes. So it's something that I can still do, whether, it doesn't worry what the weather is. I can just do it right from my kitchen. So
yeah,
fun.
You need a YouTube channel.
I know.
Oh my God. You could do, oh man. You need a YouTube channel.
I know. I can see like all the, your brain's just popping.
Yes, I was going to say my wheels are turning.
I just need more time. I need more time in a day, right?
Just don't edit it. Just throw it up. Whatever happens.
Yeah.
It's fine. People love it for what it is, and people who don't love it are not going to be your audience anyways.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
I think that's kind of the way I look at it with most of the things these days. I lower my barrier to entry. Yep. Because if I, sit there and think about it too long, or if I put too many demands on it, I think about what can I do on my worst day?
Yeah.
Not, a lot of people when they set their goals are like, I want to accomplish this. They think about it from like, what's their best? What can they do on their best day?
That's true.
Versus like, I need to think about what can I do on my worst day when I just don't feel like it. Yep. I don't have time, whatever. I'm going to shove it out there. If you don't like it, you probably weren't for me in the first place.
Yep. And you just have to start. You just have to do it. That's the hardest part is just starting.
Build the airplane while you're flying. Yep. I think that's kind of been my strategy with a lot of things. Just build the airplane while you're flying.
Yep.
And just hope that you get it before you get the ground, shall we say.
Yep.
But very good. So then what are you like really excited for in the next 12 months? Like, is there a particular event? Is there like a particular class? It can be personal, it can be business, it can be whatever.
My focus this year is growing online. I want to maximize my efforts. I'd like to grow my cake decorating group online. I want to grow my subscription box. I think I mentioned to you in one of our emails, I have plans to start a podcast of my own. So that's in the works the next couple months, hopefully, kind of getting everything lined up for that. And then so maybe I can start my YouTube with that, right? Upload videos, my podcast. And
yeah.
So
you need a YouTube.
You'll be my inspiration.
Oh my
you do a great
gosh.
job with that.
You need a YouTube 1,000%. It's one of those things that I don't know if it's talked about enough, like in the content creation world. Mm-hmm. And maybe it is, and I'm just not in the right algorithm. But YouTube actually pays you the most of any platform in terms of like ad revenue.
Sure, yeah.
Distribution. So they pay you 53% of the profits from YouTube. Like that's really good.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where like it takes time, it takes effort, it takes consistency, as does anything else.
Right.
But if you can reach that monetization threshold and get it, and I swear, cake decorated, like you are just made for it.
Well,
I like to teach.
I know that I could sit and watch like the sugar cookies, when they're flooding.
Exactly.
I could sit and watch those all day. And then like the time-lapsed cake decorating, like that's what I can do because you don't have to listen to me talk, and it's fast. So it gets done like in a few seconds and you're not like watching me like, oh, fix that little spot because it's just like going through so fast. So I do have several of those, just not on YouTube.
But see, here's the beautiful thing though. YouTube in the last 2 years to compete with TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff where all the short form content has become a thing. YouTube has shorts now. Yes. So all of your stuff can be repurposed. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Just need to take a YouTube day and just start uploading content, right?
Yes. Or make your son do it. You know what I mean? Like make one of your kids. Just,
I need to utilize my teenagers for sure.
Yeah.
And so we, with my son doing the Tuesdays with Tyler, he's not comfortable going live. Like I go live when I do the cake decorating in the group. He's like, Mom, I can't. I'm going to mess up. I was like, that's what makes it fun. It's real time. It's like they're sitting in the kitchen with you. He's so funny. During COVID, he and I would go live every Friday in our kitchen and just decorate a cake just for fun. And, people just fell in love with him because ever since he was a little baby, you never knew what was going to come out of his mouth. And so he's just so entertaining. But anyway, so in the group, he's like, let's just record it and then you can edit it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, which it's not too long, but it still takes time for Mom to edit. Well, my other daughter, who's a year older than him, she's like, Mom, give me the videos. I'm going to do a blooper reel. Like, I was like, you got to be nice. But I was like, I think that's fun because I love a good blooper reel. So I need to start having her go through those and, because that would be great content, I think, and get people excited about, the fun stuff we do in the group. Bloopers and all.
Definitely. 1,000%. It's one of those things, you're bringing joy.
Yep.
And I think that's really important for just everybody right now. So your podcast, tell me a little bit more. Like, are you going to are you thinking like cake decorating, like bakery focused, or are you just kind of want to do all over the place?
Well, I've always loved the business side of my business. And I always feel like if there were two of me, one of me would be doing the decorating, the other one would be doing like marketing full time, because you could literally take the entire, you could spend all day marketing your business and it still wouldn't be enough time. So I think I would like to focus on the business side of a bakery, just sharing what I've done, just my experience as a business owner. And then I'd also probably sprinkle in some stories and, life and I don't know, whatever people want to know. But I think my focus would be the business side of things.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when are you going to launch?
So my goal, which I have never said out loud to anybody, I would like to launch in March. March is my birthday month. So I thought, that'd be a fun marketing, idea. I don't know. So I'm going to shoot for March. I've been kind of going through the process and making a plan and, I just need to start. I just need to do it. Just need to I have a microphone and everything I've had forever. Just need to start recording and build the plane while it's flying.
Exactly. I am so here for that kind of a plan. Just start. The hardest part is starting.
Mm-hmm. It really is with everything.
Your first episodes are going to be like your first cakes. You're gonna
terrible. Yeah. Not going to want to listen to them.
You're going to look back and however many episodes down the road and you're going to go, I can't believe anyone listened to this.
Yep.
But that's
just the way it goes, though.
It is the way it goes. And if I have any recommendation, it's lower your barrier to entry.
Yeah.
So like whatever you have, whatever's holding you up of like, I can't do this because I need to edit it.
Right.
No, you don't. Like, no, you don't. You leave the pauses, you leave the, the background note, you leave all of it in there. And whoever's going to be your audience is going to be your audience.
Yeah, they'll stick through the pauses and the mess ups and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or
you're right.
Your husband criticizing your questions in your first episode. Like, whatever. They'll stick with it. So, very cool. Is there anything else that you want to share with people about your business, about what you're trying to build?
I mean, I don't know. Like I said earlier, I just love like talking business with people, whether it's baking or whatever. I love like walking around Geneva. I leave my husband in the camper. I'm like, I'm going to go look around a little bit, do some shopping. And I just love talking to the vendors and, asking, how they got started and what they're doing. And I'm like, oh, you know what you should do? And like sharing, unsolicited, maybe you don't want my advice, but here, it's a great idea I think that you should do. I love talking to people about their businesses, and just, helping them see that there's so many things that they could do depending on which direction they want to go. I don't know. I think if you're interested in starting something, I mean, go for it. Life is short, doesn't have to be perfect. If you hate your 9-to-5, I mean, I'm not saying quit your job, but, wouldn't you rather live your life doing something that you enjoy and just find a way to make money doing it and figure it out as you go and, ask people, what do you want? Are you interested in this? And just to kind of help niche down what you might want to offer. I don't know. I just feel like life is too short to be miserable. So why not do what you love?
Freaking amen to that one.
Right.
The one question I did forget to ask you.
Okay. What's
your favorite cupcake flavor?
My tried and true, I would say, is red velvet with cream cheese buttercream. I don't know why I love it. I just do. I don't make it very often. I mean, I love a lot of flavors of cupcakes, but that's like my number one probably.
What's your best seller?
Oh, gosh. My salted caramel buttercream is very popular, but I have a cupcake called Burn in Love. It's a dark chocolate cake with a little pinch of cayenne pepper and a cinnamon buttercream. And I don't know if it's just because people are curious or, I mean, it's kind of like that Mexican chocolate vibe. It's different and people love it. It's a good one. So that one's pretty popular too.
Gotcha.
Yep.
But you, like me, your most popular flavor is not your favorite.
Yeah.
That's always what I get with people. They're like, what's your favorite? I'm like, this one. Yeah. But everybody else likes this one. So yeah. Don't you love that?
I know. I was thinking, driving over here, I was like, I wonder how I can incorporate crickets into my cupcakes.
Oh, we can do that.
Right?
We can
or
some
biscotti. I don't know how people would feel about that, but like
Halloween.
It's like that curiosity factor.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Do a Halloween cupcake.
We'll discuss that.
Okay, we can do that.
I think it'd be fun. I love it.
We can talk about that offline. I sense a collaboration in the future.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. Is there anything else you wanna tell people?
I don't know. I love talking business. So if anybody has any questions about baking or cake decorating or just business in general, I love sharing the things I've learned. I've spent lots of money on courses and education just, over the years that I would never tally up to know how much I've spent because I know it's a lot. But, I just love to learn and implement it. So I'm an open book and I love to share what I've learned and help people. So
awesome. So then where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Frosted Iowa. And my website is frostediowa.com. And then you can find my biscotti at getbiscotti.com.
And soon you'll be able to find you on YouTube.
Yeah.
And your podcast.
Coming soon.
All of the things. Well, thank you so much for coming and sitting down and talking with me today. I've really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Yes. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
You're very welcome.